Okay, so post-game video, actually inspired by a Heroquest one-shot. They're one-shots, but they tell a linear story. So, the more you participate in, the more you understand about, the ongoing story. 14 quests in a row, um, one per month, unfolds the expanded story of the original Heroquest board game. If you don't know anything about Heroquest, just Google why is HeroQuest so great. This man with a beard named the Bard, he'll explain everything to you. What this post-game video is about is one-shots. When you advertise a one-shot, you are making a promise, right, that you're going to run an entire adventure in one shot. It's very important that you understand that commitment that's being made when you offer a one-shot. Right now, global pandemic, people aren't really that busy. If you promise to run the one-shot in 4 hours and it takes 6 hours, most people are probably going to be okay with it. But in the real world, should we ever return to it, you need to be able to run a game in the time that you allot for the game. People are very busy. They don't want to stay up super late. They don't want the game to run longer than they should. They maybe made other prior commitments. People that play Dungeons & Dragons, they know that a game might run 30 minutes over, an hour over. But you definitely don't want to be going into the 2 hour, 3 hour, and you definitely don't want them to feel like they didn't get to enjoy the adventure, right? So, general rule of thumb for 5th edition I found is 1 hour per encounter. Doesn't seem like there's a lot, right? 4 encounters. Trust me, like 1 hour per encounter is a pretty good rule of thumb. Have enough encounters that if you have a group that's very fast, you could do, let's say, 2 per encounter, so 8 total. But really, if it finishes up a little bit early, but they still got to do and complete the adventure, that's better than it running late and them not getting to finish the adventure. So, tip number 1, start at the dungeon. Don't bother going to town. Don't bother having like them go to the tavern and get the quest. Like a Star Wars movie, right, where the exposition, I think that's what it's called, scrolls up at the beginning of the movie. Do that. Be like, hey, you guys were hired to go to this wizard's house and find out what happened to him. You traveled there. Now you're at the wizard's house. Boom. We just cut like an hour or more off of the adventure. Sorry, I mean, that's what we're here for. We're not here to hang out in a tavern. We're here to have this adventure. So once they're there, right, they want to complete the adventure. So in this case, the adventure was find the wizard. Now, when I originally planned this, I had this whole thing where they had to discover MacGuffins that explained what happened to the wizard, and then they had to figure out a way to get the wizard back, and then they got the wizard back, but he had been turned into this, like, hideous, like, bird creature by the Warhammer god of magic and chaos, and they were going to have this cool fight where they had to fight these other bird dudes who were just reskinned Vrox, and it was going to be crazy. But that is not how it went down at all. When I run a one-shot, I keep a very close eye on the clock, and I always remember final encounter going to take, 30 minutes to an hour, right? Because we're looking at encounters taking 30 minutes to an hour. So you always have to watch that clock, and as you're getting towards the end of the game, you have to start being able to cut content. So you can see that this is a pretty big dungeon, and there were, all things considered, it is not a 3-room dungeon, and there were lots of areas that they could have explored. Now, one of the things that Heroquest has that never factors into my plans, because I'm a total hack, I guess, is there are wandering monsters. So there's a Heroquest loot deck that has all kinds of neat items in it, and for some reason, they were just, like you can see right here, only pulling like wandering monster cards. So every time they would get out of combat, another monster would show up, which was fun in and of itself. And everybody was kind of laughing because of the streak of bad luck. But it did slow things down to keep having these wandering monsters jump out and attack them and everything. So what I had to do is, like, this room right here was supposed to have some monsters in it. And since there was a wandering monster card, or 2 in a row, I'd cut that one entirely, so there wouldn't be any wandering monsters there. And then by the time they got to the wizard's bedroom, they were running low on time. And there are these spooky footprints here on the ground, because Heroic Maps makes amazing maps, and they lead under the bed, right? So, I had already planned for there to be a monster under the bed, but I didn't plan on that monster being the final boss. But when the monster revealed itself, and it was the wizard's bedroom and everything else, they said to aloud, they're like, "We found the wizard. This must be what happened to him." And looking at the clock and seeing that I only had 30 to 40 minutes left, I was like, that is what happened. That is the wizard. And while they were fighting the wizard, and being teleported all over the place and dealing with like a crazy wandering mid-boss, I went over to the other side of the dungeon and I put a fake wall tile in, and I updated my dynamic lighting to completely seal off the areas of the dungeon that they had not discovered yet, so that there would be no need to bother with them, right? And then with this guy filling the role of the boss, I was able to just say, okay, don't need these guys anymore. Now, destroying the boss caused these crystals to be destroyed, so all I had to do was say, with the death of the boss, in quotation marks, the crystal begins to crumble, the corrupting effect of chaos magic is going to leave the region. Success. Bam. Am I salty that I lost 1, 2, 3 and a half rooms, and a boss fight, and a couple of encounters, and this whole other narrative I had here? Nope. Not at all. My players had a good time, and they came in under time, and I have these cool chaos bosses that I could use in another adventure, possibly later in the series, or another campaign entirely, if I wanted to, because everything that you make, you can use again. Even this entire dungeon, if I ever need a spooky, eldritch, horror-infused wizard mansion, or mansion in general, I could always just grab this map and transmog it over, and, it's already dynamically lit and ready to go. So, don't ever view having to cut content as, like, a downside. It's definitely better for a one-shot to have extra stuff prepped in case you see that your group is going really fast through the adventure, and they kind of want a little bit more. But it's also okay to just have a short and sweet adventure. And it's definitely okay to cut content to make sure that you finish that adventure in enough time. So that's just, something I wanted to discuss, is when you run a one-shot, always keep an eye on the clock, and always be willing to adapt your story and your adventure so that it ties up nice, neat, and clean, close to the time that you promised to be over. Alright, I might do a longer video at some point about running one-shots, because I do get some questions about that. But in the meantime, hope everybody is staying safe and healthy out there, and I'll see you in the next video.